Hi, I'm Tim Clay, and today I want to talk to you about insecurity. So let's start. Let me ask you a direct question. What are you insecure about? If you answer to yourself nothing, well, that's a bunch of horse poop. We all have insecurities. We all have things or situations in life where we feel less than adequate or prepared. For many people, it's their appearance. I'm too fat or I'm too ugly. And for some, it may be self-worth. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. You get the idea. And so the question is, how does your insecurity affect you? Each year, millions of Americans are diagnosed with depression, and many others turn to drugs, alcohol, and other addictive behaviors in order to self-medicate. Others attempt to hide their insecurities by maybe acting superior to everyone else, by talking down to people, and often by just being aggressive towards others. Studies have shown that most cases of domestic violence and rapes are the result of the attacker's need to escape, the escape of the pain of insecurity, and to feel in control. Now, for most people, the result of insecurity is hurt feelings or embarrassment. A personal example of when this happened to me was at a business function, and I was networking with some people with whom I wanted to do business. And I introduced a colleague of mine who I thought could also be helpful in this business venture. And let me pause here real quick. I want to give you a bonus tip, okay? This is something that you can use in life or in business. When networking at a business event, and by networking I mean just meeting people, and it can be at a business event, it can be at church, it can be pretty much anywhere. Always try to compliment those around you and build them up and create an environment for them to do the same. Other people promoting you or your business is always going to be better than you promoting yourself. So back to my story. When I introduced them, I said some nice things about my friend's business, and gave a lead-in for him to return the favor. He did not. Not only did he continue to talk about his favorite subject, himself, he also talked about how he was better at certain services than I am. And needless to say, I was pissed. I was pissed, which is a natural reaction and it's completely okay. What was not okay was the crippling effect of my self-doubt and insecurity. Rather than brushing off the insulting behavior and focusing on the deal at hand, I was focusing on the embarrassing comments, and even worse, I clearly believed them. And, the sad thing is, for weeks, the thought of inferiority just kind of lingered, and it really affected my production. And the point of the story is that we all have areas where we question our self-worth. We all have events in our life that hurt, that make us angry, that stress us out. But the trick is to learn to focus on our response as opposed to the event. Chicken Soup for the Soul author, Jack Canfield, has a formula he teaches. It's E plus R equals O. Event plus response equals outcome. So many times we blame what happens in the outcomes in our life on the actual events. But we fail to realize that the event is only half the equation and that our response to the event ultimately determines the outcome. We can't always control or manipulate the events in life. In fact, usually we have no control over the events in life, but we do have complete control over our response. Let's say we're walking out of a restaurant frustrated about something, and as we're walking out, someone runs right into you. All right, so that's the event. Someone bumps into you. What is your response? Well, you can say something negative, and that might lead to a fight, and then the outcome would be you go to jail. Or your response could be to do nothing, which is perfectly okay. Sometimes that is the best response. Or in the case of Dan Rudiker, he struck up a conversation with the guy. It was a mail carrier, and they sat down and talked for a while. And at the end of the conversation, the mailman asked, Dan, what is a nice guy from Indiana doing here in California? More importantly, what are you doing here in this restaurant? And Dan resisted the temptation to say what was really going on. He resisted the temptation to complain that he had been stood up by a movie producer, and simply said, I was supposed to meet a friend for lunch, but he must have forgotten. And he mentioned the name of the producer. And the mailman said, well, Dan, I know him. He just lives right up the road. Here's the address. So Dan, being Dan, he's like, oh, okay, great. And bam, he was on his way. And the result of Dan going to that house was one of the greatest movies ever made. And you might have heard of it. Called Rudy. Say it with me. Rudy. Rudy. Yeah, okay. So you know what I'm talking about. Had Rudy reacted differently, had his response been different when he bumped into that guy, that movie might have never been made. You may be thinking that's a great story. But what does that have to do with my insecurity? Well, think back to the story again. Rudy had just been stood up by the producer. In fact, he had been kicked off the studio lot some 500 to 600 times. He had spent, I think, 2 years or something like that in California trying to promote his story. And certainly he was affected by all the things happening. I mean, he had to have some insecurity of his own that had been building up. But it was his response that determined the outcome. So here's my challenge to you. First, try to identify areas in your life where you feel insecure. Are these feelings based on reality, or are they just self-perception? Do you feel fat because you're actually overweight, or do you just feel fat because of some insecurity? If it is because you're overweight, is it because you're eating too much, or is it genetics, or perhaps some medical condition? And my point is, if it's something you cannot change, you have to learn to respond in a positive way when those negative feelings surface. If it is something you can change, then either change it or accept the fact that you don't want to change it. The choice is yours. I once heard somebody say, quit trying to fix what you're bad at and focus what you're good at. So I want to close with this thought. You are a winner by design. I once heard actor Glenn Morshower, better known as Agent Pierce from the series 24, say something that changed my life. He said that on that first day of your life, you accomplished the most difficult thing you will ever do. On that first day, the day of your conception, you outswam between 40 million and 600 million other swimmers to get to the prize of life. Now think about that. A person is more likely to hit the lottery than to outswim 40 to 600 million other swimmers. You are a winner by design. So when life throws you curveballs, when someone says something to hurt your feelings, when you're having one of those days where nothing seems to go right, are you going to respond to caving, to self-doubt and insecurity, or by acting like the winner God created? I'm Tim Clay, and that's all I've got to say.